So we've had 6 playoff games so far, and we've had 6 home favorites all cover the spread. Who would have thunk it? Going into the postseason when it started 2 Saturdays ago that the home favorites would be a perfect 6-0. What are the chances of that happening? Just ask any sportsbook director as they're crying in their milk this morning. But once again, are we going to be shedding any tears for these guys? No, I didn't think so. And yesterday, listen, there was only one way to bet the New England game. It's just like I said in last Saturday's video report. There was only one way to bet the Houston-Oakland game. You either bet the Raiders you bet the Texans, or you didn't bet that game. And same thing last night. You either laid the 16 points and took your chance with New England, and thankfully they covered, playing perhaps their worst game of the entire season with Tom Brady at quarterback, or you didn't bet the game. But that Seattle-Atlanta game, that's where the sportsbook directors certainly got a little bit of their money back, because a lot of people out there certainly bet Seattle. Now, I broke that game down for you perfectly yesterday. Not only did I tell you that I thought Atlanta would win, but I told you that game, the free pick, the official free pick, that game was going to go over the posted price, which it did. But did I not tell you that Seattle was basically a fraud playing on the road this season? Did I not tell you that Seattle was a team that simply wasn't able to stop anybody defensively outside of Seattle this season? And the Seahawks showed you that they couldn't stop Atlanta yesterday. But a lot of people nonetheless simply looked at the Seahawks, simply remembered, hey, the Seahawks, that defense, they were able to get the job done against everybody. They would be able to show up and stop Matt Ryan yesterday. And they didn't, because they're not that good. And you saw again all Seattle's flaws manifest themselves in Atlanta. But now we have the overreaction. I'm reading the USA Today's online app today, and I see one of the headlines. And remember, guys, when you read headlines, understand that the writers are not writing the headlines, right? There's a bunch of guys that are headline writers who someday yearn to be writers that are writing the headlines, okay? And one of the headlines was this morning, can anybody stop the Falcons if Seattle couldn't? Seriously? Okay, Atlanta's playing at home against a Seattle team that had been bludgeoned on the road a number of times. Think back to Lambeau and the Packers, what they did to them, right? A Seattle team that had not been able to perform on the road offensively. Think back to Tampa. Think back to the overtime tie in Arizona, okay? And Atlanta got the job done. But Atlanta was playing at home. Now, let's say Atlanta ends up playing in Dallas against that Cowboys big offensive line, against Zeke Elliott, who's going to run the ball relentlessly. Think about when Atlanta went to Philadelphia in the middle of the season, and the Eagles decided to pound the ball with Ryan Matthews and ran for over 200 yards. And what did Matt Ryan do? He sat there on the sideline, because the best defense against the Atlanta offense is keeping Matt Ryan on the sideline by using a punishing ground game. And that's the key to success against that Atlanta offense, keeping Matt Ryan iced, no pun intended, or maybe every pun intended. Overreaction, though. You're going to see it, because everybody's going to remember that you're going to see that Falcons score and go, oh my God, they put up all those points against that great Seattle defense that wasn't that great. And everybody's going to say, oh my God, look at how Atlanta played so strong defensively against Seattle yesterday. Really? Seattle's offensive line? That bargain basement price their GM assembled this season that really hadn't done anything all year long to open up any holes for whatever running back they had to afford Russell Wilson any protection? That performance you're talking about from the Atlanta defense yesterday? Yeah, go against a good offensive line and then tell me how good that Atlanta defense is. But hey, that was yesterday's game. And what's to take away from the Patriots game? There is no takeaway from the Patriots game. The Patriots played a lousy game. Listen, that was my 15-dime best bet. If you happen to get my analysis there, did I not tell you in that particular game? You have to excuse me, guys. my voice goes in and out here, so you have to bear with me for the rest of the risk report, because I can tell it's not going to last too much longer. But did I not tell you in my analysis there that the difference between the Game 3 battle, the Week 3 battle won by the Patriots, was not only the fact that they had Tom Brady in this go-round, but they also had Deion Lewis, where they didn't have him. And in the final 3 regular season games, Dion Lewis had reemerged as a viable alternative to LeGarrette Blount, and you saw what Dion Lewis offered them out of the backfield yesterday, and thank God he did with the 3 touchdowns. The takeaway from that game is Patriots played a lousy game. They were rusty, and they got to get better, but at least they got that game out. And it's a good thing because now they have to await the winner of the Kansas City-Pittsburgh game, and that's the game that I'm going to break down for you as my free selection today. Now, let's break down some stats going into these games here today. So, updating now for you. Again, favorites are 6-0 in the postseason so far. Overs 2-0 yesterday. Now, on an 18-8 run, the overs are after both of yesterday's games went over the posted price. Going back to 1975, in case you missed yesterday's little breakdown of how the divisional round games have gone. Favorites are only 6 games over 500. And that's with yesterday's 2-0 sweep. Favorites of 0 to 3 points, like Kansas City, are only 4 games, or are actually 4 games under 500. Favorites of 3.5 to 6.5 points, like the Cowboys, are 4 games over 500, thanks to the Falcons cover yesterday. Home favorites are 7 games over 500 after yesterday's 2-0 sweep. But these are all little numbers. The big picture number is this. You've had 166 divisional round games dating back to 1975. 70 of them have been decided by 2 touchdowns or more. That's 42.2%. 115 of them have been decided by at least a touchdown margin. That is 69.3%. So more often than not, you have blowouts just like you had yesterday. Again, 69.3% of them have been decided by at least a touchdown. 42.2% of them have been decided by 2 touchdowns or more. Let's talk about Kansas City and Pittsburgh. I think it's a damn hard game to handicap and break down. If Ben Roethlisberger was 100% healthy, and I ripped Mike Tomlin, who I thought Terry Bradshaw maybe perhaps used the wrong term, calling him a cheerleader of a coach. I think he's an overrated coach. I think Terry Bradshaw should have been more succinct, should have been more targeted with his criticism of Mike Tomlin, a guy who doesn't win on the road in the postseason and generally fails to win, I think, in the biggest of games, but he has benefited from having such a talented array of superstars at his disposal. I think Tomlin blew it last week. What was he doing with Ben Roethlisberger in the game with 5 minutes to go with an 18-point lead at home against Miami? So when Roethlisberger re-aggravates that foot fracture from earlier, now all week long, you got to wonder, okay, he's probable. No, he's not going to have any problems. He's okay to go. Hey, you're telling me NFL teams tell you the truth? You're telling me that they're going to let everybody know, hey, Ben's fine. Yeah, we're not going to tell you that actually he's hurting more so. We're not going to find out the truth of the matter until after the game. Because why are you going to let your opponent know? So, we need Ben Roethlisberger to be the guy that threw 5 touchdown passes and absolutely carved up that Kansas City defense, passing for 22 of 27 for 300 yards in those 5 touchdown passes in the first meeting won by Pittsburgh at home 43-14. The game in which Le'Veon Bell returned after his 3-game suspension to start the season and had 23 touches for 178 total yards, going for 144 yards on 18 carries. Remember, this Kansas City run defense is no good. No good. 26 in the league. Gave up 4.4 yards per carry. Gave up 121.1 yards a game. The defense in that game got to Alex Smith. But then again, the Steelers were up so big early because of a couple of crucial Kansas City turnovers. Alex Smith was like a sitting duck back there. They knew he had to drop back. So the fact that he was sacked 4 times doesn't surprise me. So you've got all these offensive weapons for Pittsburgh. But this is something I also want to point out. Just keep in mind, not only do you have to worry about is Ben Roethlisberger healthy, but the Ben Roethlisberger that plays at Heinz Field is not the Ben Roethlisberger that you generally find that plays on the road. At home this season alone, he completed 70.8% of his passes, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His quarterback rating was 116.7%. On the road this year, 59.4% completions, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, his QBR 78.4%. Now, this is not a one-year anomaly. I went back and I looked at his figures for the previous 2 years. Previous 2 years at home, 39 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. On the road, 14 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Guys, it's not a statistical anomaly. This is a 3-year trend, okay? Steelers, 3-7 on the road in the division round compared to 12-1 at home. Their last divisional road win on the road coming at 2005 at Indianapolis. Their other one coming against the Colts when they were in Baltimore in 1976. I remember that game. I grew up as a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. That was a game where Rocky Bleier, I remember this game, Rocky Bleier took the opening kickoff. He was hurt. The Steelers got so pissed off. Their defense just demolished, who was the Colts quarterback back then at LSU? Burt Jones. Franco Harris ran for like 150 yards in the first half of that game. Then Franco Harris gets hurt. They're up big in that game. They won that game like 41-14, I think was the final score. He gets hurt in the second half. So then they go to the AFC Championship game against Ken Stabler and the Raiders the following week. And they got no Franco Harris, no Rocky Bleier. Frenchie Fuqua was the running back that week, I think, with Terry Bradshaw in the backfield, and they get demolished by the Raiders, and they blow their chance to go to the Super Bowl. But anyway, we digress. Listen, I will tell you this about the Chiefs. Andy Reid looked it up, 3-0 when he is given an extra week, bye week, going into the divisional round. I think Andy Reid, when I look at this game, I think Andy Reid realizes that he does not have the defense to stop the Steelers' offensive arsenal. I think Andy Reid realizes that he's got to open it up and take chances offensively, just like he did in that game that won them the AFC West title at San Diego to close the season. Just like he did in that Atlanta game, where the Chiefs got into the slugfest with the Falcons at the Georgia Dome late in the season. I think Reid knows that he's got to be proactive and he's got to take shots. I've often criticized Andy Reid for being very conservative, and after watching for all the years in Philadelphia, I know that he is sometimes. He's a guy who loves the West Coast offense, but in his heart, he'd rather just run the ball and be very conservative. But I think you've seen him at times this year when it's called for that he's more than willing to open it up, like he did against Denver, too, this year. And I think that he's going to have to open it up here again. Alex Smith's protection got much better as the season progressed. He was only sacked 4 times in the final 5 games this season. The Chiefs have a very opportunistic defense. They led the NFL in takeaways this season. They had more interceptions, 18, and more fumble recoveries, 15, than any other team in the league, 33 takeaways. You know, Ben Roethlisberger is one of those gamblers. He is a feast or famine guy. You know, he might have those 5 touchdowns and he might throw 3 interceptions the next week because he's always trying to force the issue. Therefore, I think this is a tough game. In my heart, I want to tell you the Steelers are going to win. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Steelers win. The wind chill, the cold temperature, yeah, that's going to bother a bunch of guys from Pittsburgh in this game. But again, as I've told you so many times this season, why bother sitting here trying to, cut it right down the middle and figure out who's going to win the damn game when it's so close? Yeah, I think the Steelers might win. But why not just simply play the over? Because again, I think you've got 2 teams that are going to make it here on the strength of their offenses tonight. And you've got a total, in my way of thinking, that's been suppressed at 44.5. Just like I thought yesterday's total with Seattle and Atlanta was suppressed because everybody was so in love with the Seattle defense. And, the Seahawks were going to be able to stop the Falcons yesterday. Yeah, it took a late score to push it over, but it got over. And it doesn't matter how we got over as long as it was a winner. So again, I think tonight this is an over situation because I think this could be a 27-24 game. I don't know who's going to win it. I hope it's the Steelers because that's my rooting interest in the game. My money's on the early game because that's the better game, I think, between betting purposes wise, between the Packers and the Cowboys. But again, I think the over is the way to go in this contest. So that'll do it, guys. I wish you well. And I can't promise you I'll be here tomorrow with a video report, but if not, you can always catch the free picks on the homepage. Oh, one other thing. You may notice a couple changes here this week. Effective today, I fired Bob Valentino and Brett Atkins, 2 guys that I brought back a couple of months ago that had been here a few years ago at the site. Today, January 15th, was the expiration of their trial contract. I've got to be honest with you. I don't care if they had both won every single day this week. They were both gone. In Valentino's case, this is a guy who, be honest with you, pissed me off because I can't stand handicappers. And I have a rule here at the site, and I tell the guys all the time, I don't mind when you come out with big plays, but you got to have the bankroll and you got to have a winning streak behind them to come out with a big play. When he came out with a 200-dime release earlier this week, and he had not been winning, that just annoyed the hell out of me. And then he lost. I think it was UNLV. He backed New Mexico, who was a double-digit favorite at home, and UNLV won the damn game outright at the Pit in Albuquerque. And that ticked me off because he wasn't on any type of winning streak coming into the contest, and then he came out with that play, which I just thought was just ridiculous. Listen, guys are going to have losing streaks. Trace Adams and Brad Wilton right now are in slumps, although Wilton won yesterday again and has another big 100-dimer coming up today. But you look at the profit that they have accumulated in Wilton and Adams' case over the past 14 to 18 months, respectively, for these guys, and you see that the profit that they still have, the fact that they've had a tough 2-3 week period, again, they're playing with other people's money, bookmakers' money. Look at the profit they still have. That's different. But when a guy like Valentino, who had been losing, comes out with that type of play, that's a chaser. I can't stand it. He's gone. Brett Atkins, different case. Won a ton of totals. You know it as well as I do. Now, he lost yesterday with the Seattle-Atlanta total. Won a ton of totals. But you tell me, when's the last big side selection he won? Little plays? Won plenty of them. Big featured plays, and I saw he had a featured play. I put it on a discount here. My God, I don't think he won any of them. I mean, he could not hit a big play if he had it, tomorrow's paper in front of him. It was just, it became a running joke. A good guy. A much better handicapper, I thought, this time around than Valentino. But again, their contracts expired today. They're gone. There'll be a new handicapper joining the site here probably by next weekend, and there'll be some other changes, and I'll update you on them as well. Wish you well, guys. Let's watch some football today, and I'll talk to you again soon.